Good morning, and it's been a while, but welcome to the latest part of building the DJH 2MT 260 kit. And if you can remember back that far, that's what we've got how far we've got with the body, which is page 2 of the instructions. And really all it is now is just working through the page of instructions and fitting all the relevant bits that you need to fit. There's no real order for doing this. My advice would be to do the etched parts first that you can do with ordinary solder, and then do the white metal castings later. If you remember, I didn't solder the boiler to the firebox, but or fix it. What I've done is I've actually soldered it with white metal so that it doesn't flex. Now you'll find when you do this that the boiler slightly overlaps the outside of the firebox. There's one of two things that you can do. You can leave it as it is, which is what I've done. It's not all that noticeable. And it certainly won't be noticeable once it's painted. Or what you can do is you can slit the bottom of the boiler slightly and squeeze it so that it doesn't project so much, but it only projects slightly, and like I said, it's not all that visible. If I hold it up, you might be able to see, you can just see that there's a bit of a shadow there. Once it's painted, it'll be all right. It's like the boiler band is larger than the firebox. So I've soldered it roughly, white metal. You can use epoxy, you could use super glue, but I wouldn't recommend it because you're going to be soldering to it and you'll end up with producing tear gas. So solder if you're confident enough, and use 2-part epoxy if you're not. The other thing that I've done that you need to be aware of is, again, on the instructions it tells you what diameter the holes and everything need to be. I've drilled out the hole for the chimney and for the dome. They're 3.2 millimeters, and usually, as usual with white metal, drill them out progressively. So start off with like a 1 or 1.5 millimeter drill, and then use a progressively larger one until you get the size that you want. The other task that I need to do just quickly before I reposition the camera and start fitting stuff, is I need a lot. There's a centre line. Hold on, so there's a centre line cast in the casting, which you can probably see. Well, just slightly to the right of those, there are some dimples cast into the boiler, and what these are for rivets. The instruction doesn't mention them, but in other kits they suggest that you pin the top of the boiler with 0.5 millimeter wire, so you need to drill down through them and fit lengths of 0.5 millimeter wire if you want to. If you don't want to, just leave them off. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill them out 0.55, and I'm going to fit cosmetic rivets into the top, because that's what they were. They were rivets to hold the boiler cladding on. So I'll do that shortly, and then I'll reposition the camera, and we'll start fitting some bits. Right, so welcome back. And although I said that we're not going to do these in any specific order, what we're going to do is we are going to do all the parts which are brass on nickel silver, so that we don't disturb anything else first. So these are the higher temperature bits. So what we've got is we've got 2 cab doors, which I've tricked out slightly by adding cosmetic rivets to the outside. We've got the 2 Cinder Guards, which are for the cab side, and we've got 2 handrails which we've pre-bent for the correct size. This is 0.7 nickel silver wire, and these parts go, the Cinder Guards go in between the windows on the cab, and the other 4 parts go in these holes on the rear of the cab return. So we'll just fit those. These the cab doors are handed, so just check before you solder that you have got them the right way up. They go in the holes at the back, and they need to be like that. So they need to be level with the top of the return and level with the bottom. So they are handed. So we'll solder this one in place as we've got it. Run a little bit down there. That might be a bit much. Let's get rid of that. That's better. Right, there's the first cab door soldered in place. You can dress off the tags behind later. I've got quite a sharp pair of Knipex cutters, and I can get in but you can easily dress off the tags with a needle file. Right, so we've done that one, we'll do the other side. Just check that they fit. Try not to force them because the edges are not particularly smooth. There's quite a lot of half-etched detail. Right, so that hole is slightly in the wrong place. I've still got a 1mm drill. So we'll just enlarge the hole a little bit. Right, that's it. Yeah, the full plate will get in the way slightly. You want to look from above and make sure that it is parallel, so we'll just slightly adjust that, that's fine. So there are the 2 cab doors. We'll do the Cinder Guards next, and with the Cinder Guards you need to use the 2 tags which are the furthest apart. So there's the Cinder Guard, and it's the two tags which are the furthest apart. So we'll just check whether that fits. Whether we'll have to drill the holes out a little bit. No, right. So that's done. When you come to paint, after you paint the locomotive, there is a small piece of glazing which is supposed to go on the outside of these. Just let me check that I've got it correct. Should be the longer right. You see there are two legs which you put, oh, where's the autofocus gone? There it is. There are two legs that you put into the cab side, and there are two legs which are the closer together ones. You want the longer one at the bottom.
Are you recording?
Yes. A bit much. You want to, this operation is quite tricky because you want to use the minimum amount of solder that you can possibly get away with, because you don't want solder flooding the outside of the part. So we'll see what that's like. Okay, so that's not bad. And then just run the soldering iron down the inside, and that should drag any solder that's on the outside, that should drag it down. So we'll just do that in the opposite direction. Just right, so that's not bad. And then we'll do the one on the other side. So it's the two tags which are the furthest apart. Yeah, make sure that the Cinder Guard isn't bent like that one is. So just straighten it out between your fingers. Run a little bit of flux down the joint on the outside. And that's the other Cinder Guard done. Let's get the autofocus. There it is. So you've got the Cinder Guard. And if you remember what I said, you need to add a bit of glazing to that once the locomotive's painted. And the very last thing that needs to be added, which is metal on metal, brass or nickel silver on nickel. Oh, don't want to drop it. Are the two handrails. So there are two handrails in that recess. So it's 0.7 nickel silver wired. I've been a bit generous with my ones. They should fit. So whichever method you use, if you've got a jig, fine. I really need to buy one actually, I should buy one. Let's use proper pliers. And again, solder them from the inside with a minimum amount of solder. And there you can just about see it. There's the handrail and there's one on the other side, which I'll just do quickly before we move on to the next bits. So what I'm doing with the flat end of the tweezers is I'm using the flat end of the tweezers as a gauge so that the handrail is level. Yeah, that's not too bad. So the whole point of using minimal solder is not to do what I've just done with this one, which is I've used a bit too much, and what's happened is it's gone through the holes, and it means that I've got to do more cleaning up than is totally necessary. But I'll clean it up later. I won't sort of wait and do it now. So there we go. There is the locomotive body. So I'll move it a bit down here, and you want to carry on checking the whole time that it's flat, that it doesn't rock when you put it on a level surface or a flat surface. Right, so that's that. So the next things that we can consider adding, there's basically lots and lots and lots of castings to be added. Some are vulnerable and some are not. So things that are vulnerable, for example, are the lamp irons. So we're not going to do them straight away. What we will do is we will do the front steps, these steps here. They're brass, they fold up. So it's brass to white metal, and they shouldn't be vulnerable. And then we'll just sort of work through and add bits and pieces as we go. I've drilled the holes for the chimney and the dome. We'll probably do those as well. So we'll just work through the various parts, starting with the steps. So we'll take this drill out. We'll just we'll get, that was 0.75, we'll get a 1mm drill. All the holes, the dimensions for the holes are marked on the instructions. Some are clearer than others. So we'll do the steps at the front. Now when you're drilling into white metal, for the smaller drills like 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, you should use a drop of oil. I use a drop of sewing machine oil, which I use to lubricate wheels and things like that. I just put a drop of it on and then wipe it up afterwards. So now what we've got to do is we've got to find the steps for the front. And that. Okay, a slight change of plan, because the front steps that I mentioned, they are white metal castings. They are not etched, which is a bit strange, but hey, it's what the kit is. So as a change of plan, we're going to do something else. And what we're going to do is we're going to fit the front steam pipes and the top of the cylinder chests, which are these square castings. You need to drill the hole out on the top, not all the way through, just needs to be enlarged slightly, 2.1mm, and these are the steam pipes. There are two of these, obviously, one for each side. They will probably have a bit of flash and casting mark on them. It's not overly critical, the casting mark at the front, because you can remove that with it in situ. Might be easier to do that, but any flash or casting mark behind, certainly casting mark and flash, you need to remove. So flash I remove with a combination cutters, sharp blade on a knife, managing to nick myself in the process, and then diamond coated needle file because they don't clog up. And then we'll do the actual casting mark at the front as well. It's useful to do these first because the front plate, which is white metal, if you remember this, is only screwed with one screw to the foot plate, which is brass. So fitting these parts will basically help the integrity of your model, and it won't, it will tend not to bend so much. So I'll just use a coarse one of these. There's a casting mark on the outside. We'll get another one. So this is a finer one. So that's got rid of the casting mark. I'll just do that. One's not so prominent. And again, there are multiple ways of doing this, but what you need to make sure is you need to make sure that the foot plate and the bit at the front is solid. So what we'll do for that is I've got some clamps. I'll use a clamp to make sure that it is Use 2 clamps indeed, even to make sure that it is fully seated. Yeah, so that's fine. So there are 2 ways to do this. You can tin the top of the foot plate and solder round, but as we've added cosmetic rivets there, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to leave these to sit on the top, making sure that they are square, and then I'm going to solder underneath to the white metal, so it's white metal to white metal, and that should hold them together. But what I'll do is I'll put a little bit of flux on here, and I'll tin the brass ever so slightly with a small amount of solder. Hopefully that should aid adhesion of these parts, because in effect these steam chests actually hold, they provide more integrity to the front. So tiny bit of solder on either side. Just around the holes. I'll do the same on the other side. What I'm doing turning it over is I'm checking that the casting is square. And I overdid it. I overdid it with the heat. Oh, okay, so we'll just put it back. Yeah, the one that I've just done is slightly twisted, so you just have to that should be okay. Right, that's okay. So they're the two tops of the steam chests, and we'll add the steam pipes. Now, and you want these to sit down as much as possible. So we just need to just follow. Okay. And so white metal is quite slippery, so it's moving. So we'll tack solder it, preferably without burning our fingers. So it's quite hard to do this. Like, it's very hard to do. It is. Oh, come on. That's better. You need to check it by eye all the time that you're doing it. Make sure that the steam pipe is perpendicular to your line of vision. And that doesn't look too bad. So we'll solder around the bottom of the steam pipe now. Get that clip out of the way. Don't let it go until the solder's gone off. And there's the first steam pipe. We'll just do the second one. Should be easier now that the first one's done, because that should hold it all in place. So we'll just dress this off a little bit. And yes, it is much easier because it's not moving, because the other one is holding it in place. So once you do the first one, the second one will be easier. So we'll just tack solder that again. Look from the top. Yeah, it's not too bad. And then we have the two steam pipes with the tops of the valve chests soldered in place, and it is quite a solid structure now. There's no sagging or anything. A bit of cleaning up to do, but not a huge amount. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to make it look more like a locomotive. So you've got the dome. Now, the dome, there is rivet detail on the outside of the dome, so be careful how you clean it up, otherwise you'll remove the rivet detail. The dome needs to sit down as far as it will go, so you will need to clean off any flash or etching marks that are on the inside. so it sits down as much as possible. So scalpel. We're not worried about the outside, we'll clean the outside up later. So there's a white metal dome, that sits down nicely. Just check all the way around, make sure there's no gap. Also look back from the front, make sure that it's not leaning over. And that is leaning over. So yeah, we won't bother with the dome at the moment because the boiler needs to be, the hole needs to be slightly adjusted. We'll just try the chimney, see if that's the same. And the chimney is slightly the same, so we need to adjust these holes. I'll come back in a minute when I've done it. Right, so I'm back again, and it's been necessary to drill the holes out larger than it is in the instructions so that the dome sits centrally. So 4.5mm I had to drill it out to, rather than try and elongate the hole. So again, much the same as we did with the pipes on the side. Just tack solder the dome in place and just look at it to see that it looks okay. It is possible to get a tool to do this from Poppy's Wood Tech. Do a tool which basically ensures that the dome and the safety valves and everything are all aligned, but I've not bought one. Maybe I should. So look along the line of the boiler and you should be able to tell whether it's upright or not. So once you're happy with it, solder all the way around, and again we'll clean it up afterwards. And that's the dome done. I'll just hold it around the other way, so that's not too bad. And we'll do the chimney. Again, be careful when you dress the chimney, because like the dome, there is cast rivet detail on the outside of the skirt, just where it attaches to the boiler. And you want to get as much flash off it as you can. You also notice that I've cut the spigots shorter than they came out of the box, because this locomotive is going to be fitted with DCC, and there's not an awful lot of room in the boiler. So line it up by eye again. Keep checking the work, make sure that everything is vertical and parallel, and when you're happy with it, and I'm happy with that, solder it all the way around again. Of course, if you're not soldering it, you'll have to use it's best to use epoxy for these large white metal castings, not super glue. But epoxy is a lot, well, super glue is the same. They're not all that forgiving. And there's the chimney, and let's have a look. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. So this chimney and the dome. What can we do next? Let's have a look at the instructions. What can we do next? It's relatively quick. Right, they need a lot cleaning up. That's the manifold from the top. Right, what we'll do next is we will do the fire iron tunnel, which is just cosmetic. It's just a white metal casting. This is the fire iron tunnel. We'll clean it up and solder it to the footplate. Right, so this part goes on the right hand side of the locomotive looking forward from the cab, and it basically sits like that. So what we're going to have to do, we'll have to tin the footplate, and there is a little bit of tinning there already from where we have fixed the firebox to the footplate. What I'll do is I'll tin that, and we'll have to clean the soldering iron. So we'll tin that with a bit of 145. Don't need a huge amount. When you tin, you don't need huge great big dollops of solder. Just put the minimum amount of solder on your iron, and then you should be able to drag it everywhere where there's flux. So that's not too bad. I think that'll be more than adequate. Let's just take the length a little bit further. So there's the tinning that you need to do, and what we'll do, we'll sit this on top. Try not to let it go down in between, otherwise you'll never get it out again. So there are some little cutouts in the top of this which fit the boiler bands. There we are. Make sure it's square and then solder it all the way around with white metal solder. So we'll just do that. Just do the end first. Check that it's square and it's square, and then just run the soldering iron down there. And there's the fire iron tunnel. So it's looking more and more like a locomotive now, and we'll pick some other castings to fit. 99. So these are the rear sandboxes. They're quite big. Let's have a look, see what they're like. I presume that's one there. Now, do you need that? Yes, you do need that as well. Right, so there's 4 parts now to fit, and they are these angle parts, which are part number 65. So we'll do that, we'll take those out. We'll put those in the other bag. Part 65, and these are well, those look like part 99, but maybe they're not. Let's just check. Well, we get the other part 65. Yeah, that's not right. Well, these are part 65 and they're supposed to go under the footplate, but they don't actually line up with the holes. The holes in these parts don't line up with the hole in the footplate. So we'll have to probably the easiest thing to do is to solder these in place and then drill down from the top. Right. So that's what we'll do. We'll tin the areas on both sides. Incidentally, if you are building a later one, the one that I'm building, the Locomotive, was only 6 months old or so. If you are building a later one, there are extra holes on the bottom which you will need to open out for the AWS equipment. And the same thing looks to apply to that as to the sandboxes. So the holes won't line up. We'll just do this. Again, much the same as the top, just tin. This bit needs a bit more. So that's that side done, and we'll do the other side quickly. And then when we put these parts on, we'll call it a day for the moment, and we'll do another program soon. Right, where's the other part? 65. There it is. So there are the two-part 65s added, and what we'll do is we'll drill down from above. I've got a drill, it's 2.1 millimeters, which should be okay. Yeah, that's not good. Try it again. Right, the tops of these also need drilling out, and it's probably easier to do that now. It's 2.6 millimeters, so we get to find a 2.6 millimeter drill. Oh, that one I do 2.7. The holes in the top of these are for the fillers, so just clean it up a little bit, and then you've got a tin again where the holes are. Oh, that one's a bit rough, a little bit premature there. on these small parts, there is a slight flange at the bottom. You want the flange to be facing towards the edge of the foot plate. And that hole is too small, so we'll try it with this drill. So they're the sandboxes, and we'll just solder these in place as well. Bit of flux around the top, and get rid of that one because it'll go flying. We'll solder from beneath. I'll just run a little bit of solder around this. Okay, to summarise, so what we've done, we have fitted the two sandboxes, rear sandboxes, the fire iron tunnel, the dome, the chimney, the two front valve chests, tops, and the steam pipes, the cab doors, the handrails in the recesses, and the two cinder guards. And it is quite a chunky model now. It doesn't rock when it's put on a flat surface, and when we come back the next time we will carry on fitting the castings. There's the front buffer beam to fit, there's some steps at the front, there are the front sandboxes, and there's two mechanical lubricators which we are going to modify the foot plate because I've got a set. I asked Dave Sharp of MOK if I could have a set of castings to make the lubricators work, and he's supplied me with a set of castings to make the lubricators work, which are the same on this as they were on the Ivet 2MT, Ivet 4MT I should say. So thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll be back sooner than we were this time. It was quite a big gap. To be honest, both myself and Boris, we haven't been all that well, so that's why I've not been doing this, and I've been concentrating on other things. So thank you for watching, and watch out for some more programs soon.